What's going on, guys? Welcome back to your Lake Fork Guide. Today we're going to go over a classic proven bass fishing technique. I'm going to give you guys a couple tweaks, a couple secrets that 90% of the anglers don't know. Spinnerbait fishing. Spinnerbait fishing has been around for a long time in bass fishing, man. There's been a lot of bass. It's definitely one of the more proven, tried and true, just works no matter what, evolves in bass fishing. Spinnerbait's been there and done that, and it's still very effective to this day. I think it's kind of gotten replaced by the chatterbait for a lot of people, but there is a time and place where the spinnerbait is more effective than the chatterbait, and there's definitely a time and place when you need to be throwing a spinnerbait over everything else, and a lot of that comes right before you get to spawn and the early part of the spawn during bass fishing season, which is where we find ourselves now here at Lake Fork. We're right at the end of February. We've had some great warming trends. Not today. It's cold, the wind's blowing, I'm freezing out here today, guys, but the spinnerbait has been so good. It's been my best bait this week, and it's really gotten me thinking about some of the things that I've learned over the years about how to fish this bait, some little changes to make to it, and little things about how we present it that I think are going to help you guys catch more fish and really maybe bring spinnerbait back into your bass fishing game. And it may have been a forgotten part of it for a lot of you. I think a lot of people have moved on from it and don't throw it very much anymore. Maybe some of these tips can help you guys bring the spinnerbait back into your bass fishing repertoire, as they say. Is that even a word? Repertoire? Probably not, but it is now. Put it in the comments. There you go. So first thing is going to be the basic stuff. Let's talk about the setup we're going to throw it on, the rod, reel, and line. Of course, we've got our LGB series of rods that we custom designed here at your Lake Fork Guide. I designed them myself. They're built one at a time right here at Lake Fork, American made blanks, because you know what, LGB, baby. Let's go, Brandon. Y'all know how it is. All right, so which rod am I using? So here on Lake Fork, as you can see behind me, we've got a lot of heavy cover in the water this year. Lake was low the last year. It's come up. A lot of thick stuff. Even when Lake Fork has been at a constant level, there's a lot of heavy cover in Lake Fork. There's always vegetation of some kind. There's always a ton of timber in this lake, as everybody knows. So on Lake Fork specifically, I like to beef up my rod a little bit for spinnerbait fishing. In our LGB series, we have a 7.6 medium heavy. That's the one that I'm throwing a spinnerbait on right now. We can also throw a spinnerbait on our 7.2 light heavy. It's a very good spinnerbait rod as well. You can even throw it on our 7-foot medium heavy. If you've got a more open water scenario, that may be the type of rod you want to throw it on. But for down south, East Texas, Alabama, Florida, all that type of stuff, heavy cover, big fish fisheries, man, I like to go with a 7.6 medium heavy. It works really well, helps me get control of those fish around all the heavy cover. On line, 17-pound fluorocarbon is really my go-to. It's kind of the right blend. It's a big enough, strong enough line. I can handle fish and kind of manhandle them around the heavy cover again. But with 17-pound line, it's just a little easier to cast a spinnerbait in the wind with 17-pound line than it is, say, 20. You don't want to go too heavy on the line because spinnerbait's a little bit of an awkward bait to cast, right? With that blade and it's just a big profile. In the wind, it can be an issue. So having 17-pound line helps me cast that bait a lot easier. On the reel speed, I would recommend most people go with a 6.3 to 1. I do things differently. I actually throw 7.5 to 1 or even 8.3 to 1s on pretty much everything that I throw now. But I really am conscious, really thinking about my reel speed handle when I'm doing that. I know that I've got to turn that reel really, really slow, okay? So for most people, may not be in the habit of constantly thinking about your reel handle speed, you're probably going to want to throw it on about a 6.3 to 1. Otherwise, you're going to be fishing that spinnerbait too fast, especially this time of year in the pre-spawn period to the early spawn period. Water's still a little bit colder. Man, if you get that spinnerbait going too fast, you're not going to get, you could go from getting all the bites to getting no bites just by throwing the spinnerbait with too fast of a retrieve. So let's talk about the spinnerbait we're throwing itself. Now, as you can see, like we talked about, the flooded cover, Lake Fork has come up recently. This area we're in right now has got really pretty clean water considering the rest of the lake. I mean, this water's got a little stain to it, but it's not bad. A lot of our lake though has straight up brown water. We got some dirty water. It doesn't mean fish won't bite, especially when you get these warming trends. Man, that dirtier water tends to even warm up even better, and you can still catch fish in that dirty water. But one thing I do with my spinnerbait when I'm dealing with early in the year, rising water, rainstorms, dirtier water, getting stained, I really like to go to this War Eagle spinnerbait right here that's got this orange blade. So it's got a gold willow blade and the lead Colorado blade is orange. Chartreuse and white skirt, get that contrast. So as that thing's vibrating through there, you get the contrast of the two colors flashing against each other. That really helps the fish locate the bait as well. I think that hard contrast like that one right there, where you go either split it this way or split it this way. Either way, long as you've got those contrasting colors. It's the same thing on crankbaits that I throw this time of year, guys. I like to have a hard contrast line on them. That way as the bait moves through the water, when it vibrates, that pulses that color and really flashes that color, helps them find it in that stained water. So the key deal on this is, when it's warming up, as the water warms and it gets over, say, 60 degrees, like this week we've gotten over 60-degree water, and pretty much the back of all of our creek arms on Lake Fork are getting up above that number. I've seen it as high as 67 this week. When that's going on, the blade that comes standard on this is a number 4 willow blade. That's perfect when the water's warming and getting above 60 and continuing to warm. But when the water starts cooling, okay, even if it's still above 60, say it was 65 the other day, but now it's 61 or 60. When the water goes on a cool trend, those fish will slow down. And when they slow down, what you got to do is take this number 4 willow blade off, put a number 6 gold willow blade on. That bigger blade changes everything about this spinnerbait as far as the speed of the retrieve. Just like I told you earlier, if you go too fast, you won't get enough bites. When that water cool trends and starts dropping back down, you've got to slow that spinnerbait down. Putting that number 6 willow blade on here, bigger blade, creates more drag in the water. It allows you to roll that spinnerbait through this shallow cover so slow that blade is almost just whoom, 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 like it's just going real slow through there, and your spinnerbait's only moving like that fast. Literally, you can fish your spinnerbait that slow in shallow water with that number 6 blade on this 3/8 ounce War Eagle spinnerbait. That is one of my best fishing secrets overall. That is one of my best adjustments over all these years, and hardly anybody does it. But if you can crawl that spinnerbait up high in the water column in shallow water on these cool trends right before they spawn or right when they start spawning, I cannot tell you the amount of success you'll have when everybody else is looking around you going, God dang, it's tough, man, we ain't catching them. And this deal's catching them. I mean, it's just, I can't express to you how important that is and how good of a tip that is. So let's talk about the areas we're gonna fish. Well, you can, again, kind of see behind me, we're at the back of a creek here, and you see where all this flood cover is, where it starts really narrowing down. The shallower water you can get in, the warmer it's gonna be. So this time of year, I like to look for the warmest water I can possibly find, and that's gonna be this backwater area. So as far as areas go, when you're talking about late pre-spawn to early spawn, man, it is the back, the very far back of the shallowest creeks. It's that simple. Now the good thing about a spinnerbait is it shines in that. You can throw it around all this cover. It works through the flooded grass and the flooded bushes pretty good. You can literally bounce it off stumps and it'll roll through that pretty well as well. Spinnerbait is very effective when you're fishing the heavy junk like we have back here right now. Stay tuned, because we still got another top secret tip that I think is going to help you be more effective with your spinnerbait. Right now I want to talk to you guys about how I'm fishing this thing, how I'm presenting it to the fish, how I'm fishing it around this cover that we got back here. So what you want to do with the spinnerbait basically is get as close to the cover as you can. Even contacting, if it's a hard piece of cover, if it's a stump, brush pile, you can actually contact that cover with a spinnerbait and get a lot of bites that way. Just when it contacts that, it creates a little disruption in the retrieve, right? The spinnerbait's just rolling, hits that and gets a little bounce or gets a little stop start. Anything like that that adds a little sudden change to the retrieve can trigger a reaction bite at times. So that's what you want to look for and do. So what you got to do is you got to find your lanes and your avenues and try to position your boat correctly. Like right now, you can see right here, I can throw right off the point of this bush. This bush makes a point right here. All this cover's making a point. I can throw right off the point of that bush. So I want to make this cast right here where I can roll as close to the point of that bush as I can. You can see me kind of manipulate my line. My bait started to go a little bit left, and I reached out to get my line to go around that bush. I'm rolling right off the point of that bush right now. Look how slow I'm turning that handle, guys. That's important. That's really important. Here's the other thing, and this is the top secret thing that I don't hear people talking about with spinnerbait. You see a lot of people fish a spinnerbait, and they got their rod down here, right? Or maybe if they want to run it shallow, they hold the rod up like this. I think there's a way to hold your rod position that's real important that nobody ever talks about. So when I'm fishing a spinnerbait, I get it out there, I want my rod to be right here in this position, almost straight out and slightly up. And what that's gonna do, I'm just gonna control the depth that the spinnerbait's at with my reel hand. If I wanna stop and let go of the bottom, stop and let go of the bottom, and then just slow roll it. If I want it higher, I'll reel it faster. It'll come up higher in the water column. The blades on that spinnerbait will make it want to ride up in the water column throughout your retrieve. So you have to control and manipulate the depth of the bait with your reel handle. But holding the rod like this, the big benefit of it is going to be this. As I'm going through right here, when I get a bite, 9 times out of 10 on a spinnerbait, when you get a bite, that fish pulls that spinnerbait down. It pulls away from you at least a little bit. And when you're holding your rod like this right here, when it does that, it puts immediate direct pressure on that fish. And what's your instinct when you get a bite? Your first instinct is going to be to come here a little bit, right? So as that fish hits on a tight line with that rod pointing straight out like it is, it puts immediate pressure on that fish. You don't have as much bend in your rod. And then you go from right here, in this position, as you pull up, you immediately start bowing your rod and putting even more pressure on that fish. So you basically, as soon as the fish bites the bait, I mean the instant he bites the bait, you're already putting pressure on that hook point, driving it into that fish's head. You know, spinnerbait's not a bait. It's got an open hook on it. It's not a bait where you got to like wait, reel down, set the hook like you do on a weedless swim bait. You know, this is very similar. Uh-oh, we're hooked up. This is very similar to a weedless swim bait, you know, in the style that you fish it, in the areas that you fish it, but the hook set's completely different because a weedless swim bait does not have 2 open hook points hanging out of it like this. One thing we didn't mention earlier, I should have mentioned, man, always use a trailer. I can't tell you how many fish I've caught just on that hook right there. Always use a trailer hook, guys. So the hook set's got to be different because the hook is open, right? So it's just more of a pressure set. It's not a reel down and jerk. It's you're reeling, the fish bites, and you just pull up immediately. Now, it's a big gauge hook, so you do want to jerk and pull hard. Like you can hammer down on them with a spinnerbait. But what you don't want to do, with a spinnerbait is to get a bite, pause, reel down, and then set. That's never what you want to do. This hook set on a spinnerbait should be, got a bush there. Hook set on a spinnerbait should be, I'm reeling along, I feel a bite, and a hammer right there. So you just go from the position, and that's why holding your rod in the correct position while you retrieve it is so important with the spinnerbait. The other thing about how you retrieve a spinnerbait is, do you give it any added action? Now, I will say there are times, especially when you get around key pieces of cover, there are times that you need to add a little action to a spinnerbait. So if I didn't have all this cover, like right now I can roll a spinnerbait by cover at whim, like there's so much cover to throw around. But if all this flooded stuff wasn't here, I just had the stumps in the middle, what I would want to do is get this bait by a stump. Okay, let's say that bush right there sticking out of the water, just for visual purposes for you guys, that bush, let's say that's a standalone stump by itself, right? As I got that spinnerbait up to that stump, when I felt like my bait was right beside it, I would shake it, reel it a little bit, shake it, and I would just make those blades kind of jingle jangle, you know, give it a little shimmy shake, make those blades pop, make that skirt flare and pop a little more, just giving it a little extra reactive action. Remember about the cover. You don't necessarily want to contact it. I want to get as close to that bush as I can without contacting it. The hard stumps I actually want to contact. If the cover's hard, dock piling, standing timber, lay down, contact it with the spinnerbait. If the cover is soft, grass, flooded bushes that have flimsy limbs, then you want to be close but not contact it. All right, guys, that's my top secret guide tricks for fishing a spinnerbait that I'm sure most of you guys probably didn't know some of those tricks. I bet there was at least something in it that most of you guys didn't know about. And this is the spinnerbait we're throwing right now because of the dirty water situation. I love War Eagle spinnerbaits. I do think they might be the best ones on the market. There's a few others that are good, but I really like War Eagle spinnerbaits. Also, when that water's cleaner, like in here, if I was actually going to fish a spinnerbait in here, I would actually take this one off. I would tie on a natural color, a shag color, a white, a gray, something like that, and I would probably put silver blades on it as well. Same blade configuration, same blade sizes that we talked about, but put the silver blades on instead of the gold and the orange. The gold and the orange, the chartreuse, that's all for the dirtier stained water. You get in cleaner water, go to more natural colors. So you can play around with the colors depending on the fishery that you're on. But if you've got the dirty water situation, this little baby right here is top secret, man. I'm telling you, it does the work on them. It's not as top secret as it used to be. I see more people throwing baits like this now, but it still doesn't get used that much, and it is so effective. All right, thank you guys so much for watching. As always, man, we really appreciate everything that y'all have done to help us build up your Lake Fork Guide over the years, keeping us on the water, living our dream, booking trips, watching videos, man. All of it helps so much, and we're forever grateful for all of you guys that do what you do for us here at your Lake Fork Guide. So we appreciate it. We'll see you next time right here. on your Lake Fork Guide. Got him. Got him, biggin'. Not great biggin', but decent. Hell, he's just a short, fat one. Looky there. Maybe it was the same fish I missed it. Look how that fish is built. He ain't got no tail, Scott. No tail at all. Oh, he got me on the stump. Get off the stump. He's got, oh, it's a big one, I think. Feels like a big one. He's got me right on this stump, Scott. I don't know if I still got him there or not. Did you see his tail swirl? Here it goes. Pretty good one. Ah, that's a stud there, bud. She hit me right on that old stump pretty good. I'm gonna need to retie mine too. GoPro. Scott, hold that so I can see it good. They can't see very good when I'm holding it.
Got a baby.
That's another stud, ain't it, buddy?
Baby.
We ain't catching too many small ones today. Get out my trolling motor, dude. He's hung in my trolling motor. This is a new way to boat flip them right here. That's the new way to boat flip them, bud. I got it. I got it. Come here, Bacon.
Slaughter.
Yeah, that'll do you no good in a tournament.
It sure is pretty today.
But you'll have fun getting your butt whipped. You'll have a lot of fun getting your butt whipped with them. Good fish. Awesome.